Alright, and we're back. So we will continue with the inferior half of the game, I think. Because again, this is kind of where things hit the fan. Up until now, everything was fine, but it's now where we start to realize what was cut and what was not changed, and what was changed but was made worse. It's just a little disappointing overall, really. Let's see. We definitely need those mine rounds for this fight. I don't believe we're going to need the lockpick. Bring the flame rounds. And the high-grade gunpowder as well. If you did not get either the shotgun or the grenade launcher, they would appear here, which is good. You know, Resident Evil traditionally does things like that in case you somehow miss these items. Not really sure how you would, you know, unless you're genuinely just not exploring the environment, I'm not sure how you would miss the grenade launcher. This whole section, too, can be run through, and ironically, it's easier to run through this section on the higher difficulties because they change where the enemies are. Here, you at least have to shoot the zombies to get them out of your way or dodge them. On Inferno and Nightmare, you don't even have to do that. This was also when I said I saw the Flaming City section and the Nemesis Rocket section. This is where that stream ended, overlooking this area, and man, was this an exciting vista to look at and say, oh my god, look at this water here, dude. Look at this clock tower. We're going over to the fucking clock tower, dude. There's this bridge. You know, and again, like, I feel like we're right next to the park, you know? Like, this could be the park. This has a park aesthetic. And it just feels like at some point we were supposed to explore more. I just cannot think that they thought that playing as Jill, switching to Carlos, switching back to Jill exclusively for a boss fight, and then going right back to Carlos, like it's weird pacing. It's incredibly weird pacing, and I don't understand it. And then later, there's also a section where we could play as Carlos again, where we could have a third Carlos section, because there's sort of, at least in my mind, a bit of a question about, well, what the hell was Carlos doing? How did he get to where he is? What was he doing this whole time? Because there's no way he took the same fucking path we did. I think that this is a fair reason for him to transform. I like that line. But this is kind of where we hit the problem, is that in the original game, Nemesis had kind of a transitionary state between being just a hideous monster and a bipedal stalker, where he was a monstrous stalker, where he was using his tentacles more than weapons. He'd become a little bit more feral. We don't get that here. And I feel like we should have. I feel like we should have fought kind of feral Nemesis here. Nemesis 2 should have been him with the tentacles, just like originally. And it goes down very much the same way. But here, instead, for the sake of this set piece, basically, we get this monstrous form early, and we have a boss fight that, while okay, is worse in the retrospect of it being repeated later with minimal changes, and the changes that it has are bad. And the fact that this is the only exposure we get to the clock tower area makes it worse. The problems just kind of start compounding from here, in my opinion. Shit. I was a little early on that. What do we have in here? Grenade, explosive rounds. There we go. I think that this is definitely a decent fight. I don't have any problems with it. This is also a contender for best boss fight. I think it's good. I think it's probably the most skill-based because Nemesis is very aggressive. He's on you consistently, but he is also very fair, right? You're just it's this constant dance of dodging and shooting, and it's really good. It's a good environment. There's nothing blocking you. There's no, zombies getting in your way. And then once he does start running along the walls, it's a good use of the mine rounds, although I wish they got more use somehow. Maybe against lickers or other enemies, I don't know. But this is a decent fight. It's an alright fight, and it's only made worse by the fact that we have to do it again later. Come on, Jill. This fight is only bad because we have to repeat it later. Alright, let's go ahead and put a... Wow. I actually quite like this fight, to be honest. I think also having to quickly switch between the rounds, but not having the danger of Nemesis hitting you because he's on the walls, it works out really well. It's a really good use of all the mechanics. This is kind of the peak of the game, in my opinion. Because everything works well here. It all synergizes well. And it's a shame we don't get any better than this. It's a shame we just get this again, but worse. Because the final boss fight is barely even a fight on the higher difficulties. But that's almost sort of tradition, to be honest. Final boss fights in the series are usually a little suspect. Okay, he's gonna not get there. I am hoping we don't have to collect any ammo before we kill him. I'm hoping we can save that until after. Just because it'll be a bit of a pain to try and get it with him hounding us. But we might have to. For some reason, grenade rounds do very little damage against the Nemesis. There we go.
Right, let's do this.
I do kind of like this moment, because it's pretty rare you see the protagonist of these games using anything other than the pistol, even even though they definitely have them.
Carlos, you still
And I think the grenade launcher is kind of Jill's iconic weapon.
You're gonna crap out on me now?
It's very intrinsically tied to her as a character, I feel like. So I like that a lot. We got some mine rounds there. Unfortunately, we're not ever going to have a good use for them. I mean, we can use them as extra explosive rounds, but we never really get to use them like mines again. If Carlos had access to it, he might be able to use it in the hospital against the hunters, but that's not really anything Jill ever has to deal with. So they're kind of wasted. What else do we got here? Let's reload the shotgun. We have this herb. That's a lot of ammo here. What, 4 rounds? I'll just leave them there. More ammo. Oh, is that 5? I think I will actually toss that. I like ammo. I wish I could just use this. That was something I wish they need to bring back to the series, just being able to use things without having to pick them up first. I don't know why that's too much to ask for. I have some problems with this part. Like, the fact that he gets this cheeky-ass sneak attack on her. On one hand, I guess it's clever. But again, you're like, well, why doesn't he just fucking kill her? Why is he dragging her? What is his goal here? And then just suddenly out of nowhere, this tentacle, you know? But then he passes out, right? And this is an issue I have. Nemesis recovers from, like, literally being dissolved by, like, extremely, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but, like, by extremely powerful acid. He recovers from it and becomes stronger in minutes. Literal minutes. He's back and better than ever. But here, we're supposed to believe that he and Jill were both unconscious for 12 hours here? I guess we didn't see him right there. It looked like maybe it was just his arm. But where did he go? right? Because she's not dead. She's only infected. And while that is usually a death sentence, it seems weird that he wouldn't use the opportunity to kill her. And it's not like he could not have gotten through this fence or gone around. It just seems silly that he doesn't kill her in the 12 hours that they're together here alone. And also the fact that Jill is able to stave off the infection for 12 hours when Brad turned into a zombie in like 40 minutes. So it's just kind of weird. That's not an issue in the base game or in the original game because Carlos is right there and he takes her immediately, and so it's like max 2 to 3 hours. Here, it's like we're looking at 12 to 15 hours that Jill is in this state, and that's crazy to me. And she barely even looks worse for wear, you know, like it's just so weird to me. And then we're right back to Carlos, and I just find this pacing to be incredibly weird. Like, what's the point of this pacing? Why did we only have that one boss fight with Jill?
Tyrell, where's Bard now?
Gotta be the lab in the back. Stay frosty, I'm on my way.
Copy. I'll go on ahead.
This is a pretty good section. This is the best Carlos section, just like Jill's opening is the best Jill opening, or Jill section.
I don't got time for this.
You know, I'm actually thinking there's no point. Normally I shoot the... Fuck, really? Okay. Normally I fight these guys, but I'm thinking that there's no point doing that, because I think they're going to get despawned by the time I need to come back through here, so... We're going to see. We're going to test that theory. I do like also how there are items here that only Jill can get, but you kind of like see them as Carlos first, so you have to go back. I mean, really, that's like really low praise, I feel like, but considering this is, you know, considering what game we're playing, it should be mentioned. I did not intend to pick up that tape recorder. There's no point picking that up. It's completely pointless to carry this shit around with you. But unfortunately, I'm not smart, so fuck it. Grenade. Okay. That's hilarious. Alright, let's that's dumb. We're just gonna reload that autosave. Cause I overshot that like a motherfucker. Yeah, we could have done that whole thing a little bit better. Ooh. Alright, we're gonna try and do this a little bit better this time. Come on, bitch. Oh my god. So he doesn't even try to attack me. And she gets the benefit of having come through a door. So she gets some free frames there.
Welcome to the office of Dr. Nathaniel Bard. Please state your business clearly.
I could save the grenade for the hunters, but to be completely fucking honest, these zombies are way more of a pain in the ass. Like, I do not know why the zombies are so resilient to these assault rifle rounds. It does not make sense to me at all. These zombies are really susceptible to 9mm rounds and incredibly tanky against, like, presumably 5.56 or whatever this assault rifle uses, you know? It's insane. But it's a minor conceit, you know, for the sake of this being a more action-oriented section. And of course, I could always use my knife too, that I tend to underuse. That's definitely something I could use. So, not really a complaint, or not really a flaw. It's definitely a complaint, but not really a flaw. And unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to bitch about in this section, because it's a pretty good section. I think it's really weird that the locker only has like a 2-digit combination. Like, is that even a thing that can happen in the real world? I don't know. I don't think so. It's weird. This is definitely an impressive section of the game. It is linear, but it feels open enough to give that same illusion that the rest of the series does. in the way that the entire series is linear, but it presents it in such a way to appear open, and that illusion is really powerful. I just wish the whole game felt like this. Oh yeah, he also gets all of these extra items, which is very interesting. We're gonna put that knife away. I don't really have any complaints with this section. It's pretty well done actually, but I just don't think that it's good enough or long enough to justify the removal of the other sections that they took out. I'm trying to think about which one I want these to go out. I think I want to go out this first one. Yeah. Get an upgrade here. If Jill also was forced to come back through here and explored a significantly different portion of the hospital in order to get to the underground laboratory, that might have helped, but she can only revisit the same exact places that Carlos went to. So it's not a very deep section. I don't personally mind the change from the Dead Factory to the Hive. It's fine. I think it serves a similar purpose. It's obviously not as robust, and that's kind of the problem. But it really is the removal of the clock tower in the park. I think just even a single, not even both, but just one of those sections, just a park. If you just let Carlos explore the park on his way to Jill, I think it would have been fine. We don't fight him now, do we? I don't think so, no. That's interesting. I don't ever recall seeing that hunter before, actually. That's really interesting. I'm trying to think. Which way do I go? I think I go this way. And then obviously expand Jill's section significantly by changing the intro from being that super linear Uncharted scripted sequence to an actual explorable area of Raccoon City that you need to make your way through. I think those two changes would have been quite satisfactory in terms of length, content, and exploration. And at that point, they will have only needed to change Nemesis transformations. I don't think turning the clock tower fight into a fight with his beast form was a good change. I don't think it was overall to the better, especially since they do it better with slightly more interesting mechanics anyway. Later, I think his beast form is fine as a third form, but he's missing a second form that's very important as kind of an escalation of, the threat. And really, for me, where the game falls shortest is its content. It's extra unlockable content and its replay value. As I've went over earlier, pretty much everything you unlock is worthless. And without the mercenaries mode to supplement this game, like the original Resident Evil 3 had, like Resident Evil 4 had, like Resident Evil 5 had, like Resident Evil 6 had, like Resident Evil 7 got with DLC, like Resident Evil 2 got with DLC, it just kind of falls apart. I really love the Hunter redesign, though. The Hunters are great. And I don't understand why people whine and bitch about the instant kill, because as long as you're not blind, it is pretty obvious that it's doing the setup for that. I mean, obviously you're not going to know what it is the first time you experience it, but if you pay attention to its animations, it is very obvious when it is planning to do the instant kill attack. So I think the complaints about that are unfounded and just perfunctory. I think that's the first time I've ever actually used that word. I'm not entirely sure of its definition, but it felt appropriate. It actually triggers these assholes to open that door. Not sure. What kills me here is I believe the combination to this is just 9-3. Which kills me because the combination to the first save is 9-3-7. So even the combinations to these safes are lazy as fuck. And picking up that accessory brings up kind of an interesting talking point about the fact that this is probably was developed alongside 2, is that these games are very mechanically different. The fact that in 2 Remake, when you pick up an accessory that would normally in earlier games give you extra ammo, it doesn't do that, but in this game it does, speaks to vastly different design philosophies between the two teams. And there's other things that suggest that as well, like the removal of the defense items, like the way items are added to your inventory once you've already picked them up, like the way that the game scores you and the removal of the S+ rank. Oh, Jesus. Fuck. Like the removal of the extra content, you know, in place of fucking resistance. Terrible. We haven't even talked about resistance yet. Resistance is kind of not the final insult, but it's the salt in the wound of this game, where you have to consider why resistance was made and how it was made. Either resistance, my theory is that originally they intended to sell resistance as a separate product, and then after the backlash, and probably after an internal review of Resident Evil 3 Remake as a game, Capcom realized it did not have enough content to justify a $60 price point. So they decided to combine the games to both offset the negative reviews and reception of Resistance, right, the initial impressions, and also to try and compensate for the lack of content in RE3. And to me, that speaks volumes, because in that scenario, Capcom is admitting that, yeah, this game does not have the content, we didn't develop it as a $60 game, we shouldn't have released it as a $60 game, and also as an acknowledgement that, yeah, we know everybody fucking hates Resistance, so, you know, but we don't care, we're going to release it anyway, right? That's kind of one scenario. The other scenario is that they were always designed together and are always intended to be bundled, which is, I think, better, but it's still a gross miscalculation on Capcom's part, because this is hardly the first time that Capcom has tried this multiplayer kind of shit, and it's never worked out. It has historically very, like, oh shit. It has very historically not worked out for Capcom, these multiplayer ideas, and they just don't learn. They just refuse to learn from their mistakes. So the idea that they honestly tried to convince people, if this thing doesn't die, we're gonna be in trouble. Yeah, dude, holy shit. How are you still alive, friend? Jesus. The hell is all of our ammo at? We're gonna need that knife or something. Yeah, that's not looking good for us. We need more ammo, and I don't know where to get any. I guess we don't actually need to kill that thing. I've been pretty insistent on killing stuff, but we don't really need to. So I'm just going to go in there and try to get the item. It's the first time I've ever run out. I don't know why these enemies are so tanky. I think I've been playing okay overall, so my DA scaling might be a little high, which might explain some of this bullshit, but, man, I don't know why these things are being so tanky. Yeah, you don't actually need to kill these enemies, so it was kind of a waste of ammo for me to bother trying. Is that ammo there? Hold on. It is. Yes, I'll take that. Thank you. I think the hunters are really fair enemies, actually, especially compared to the lickers, who are pretty bullshitty. But it's again, it's kind of a shame that they're not used more, right? Like, it would have been awesome to see hunters in the city, but again, wasted potential. They're stuck to the hospital here, and also to Jill's section in the laboratory. In which case they only make one appearance, and again, the same flaw as always. They're not ever combined with any other enemies in any interesting ways. They have their own little section, because this whole game is like compartmentalization, the video game, where none of these different variables and mechanics ever interact in any meaningful way. Eat shit. Don't you dare! I knew you would try. I fucking knew he'd try it. For me, though, the final insult of this game was when they announced that there would be no DLC, that the game was complete. After having put out a survey where people said, yeah, this game doesn't have the content, we want mercenaries, this game has problems. After, having already released free DLC for RE2, and that was not exactly the final insult. That was the penultimate insult. The true ultimate insult was the $5 unlock everything pack that they put out afterwards, where after they had said, like, yeah, we're not going to expand on this game, we're not going to support this game, and we know that you think that there's no content in this game, but here's this $5 DLC you can buy to unlock what little content is here. That, to me, was when I got pissed off, and I drew the line with Capcom, and I said, well, fuck you. This is just disrespectful. If they at least had tried, if they had at least attempted to correct the mistakes and to include a mercenaries mode or something to it, and they could have. I mean, I don't see why they didn't. These environments are certainly capable of supporting such a design. I just genuinely don't know why they didn't. It seems short-sighted, and I think it was entirely simply for the sake of getting 8 out the door faster, because they ultimately didn't care about this game. I'm thoroughly convinced that Capcom did not actually care about Resident Evil 3 Remake. They simply felt compelled to do it, because if they remade 1 and 2, and then remade 4, which is totally what they're planning to do, and 8 is basically just a tech demo for it, then people would ask questions. They'd say, where's 3? And they wouldn't really have a good answer. So they rushed it out, minimal time, minimal effort, and while they were at it, they tried to earn a little bit of extra money with a half-assed, microtransaction-laden, asymmetrical multiplayer game that was never going to survive. Ever going to survive. And then, when they started adding more content and supporting Resistance, they chose to support Resistance for a full year, including like 4 new costumes that Jill could have had in the base game, but were for some reason never added to the base game. Further insults to injury, right? And again, they could have simply taken some of that content from Resistance and put it in this game. They could have let you play as the Resistance characters in 3. That would have been neat to see. They could have put Jill's extra costumes from Resistance in this game as paid or free DLC. That would have been cool and neat to see. And they just chose to do none of this, which suggests they just did not care, right? And I just think that that's like upsetting and disgusting that Capcom's one of their biggest series, Resident Evil, can be treated so disrespectfully like that, where they will remake a beloved mainline entry and put so minimal effort into it, and then even once they know, and they knew ahead of time, but even once they publicly knew and had been told, hey Capcom, this is not okay, we're unhappy with this product, they just didn't give a shit. They still just didn't care enough to even attempt to resolve any of the issues with this game. I just think that that's really, really shitty of them, which is why I, to this day, have not purchased 8. Wow. So count me surprised. These zombies are still here. That's a shock. That's actually a real genuine surprise. I definitely thought they would despawn. So I guess hats off, Capcom. You, for some reason, you didn't despawn those enemies. All right, cool.
okay, Joe.
You know, and especially because Ghost Survivors was, I think, decent content. It's not great content, but it was free and it was decent, and it added to that game in interesting ways. Especially the horde survival mode felt like kind of a prototype to what could have been done here with mercenaries or in this section even.
Tyrell, what the hell happened?
Attention all citizens. The contagion spreading throughout the city has been designated uncontainable. On October 1st, Raccoon City will be completely destroyed in a missile strike. All residents capable of rational thought are urged to evacuate immediately. This is not a test. Attention all citizens.
I mean, that's only a day away. There's still people in the city. You think Uncle Sam gives a shit? Fuck. Here they come. Oh, you sit tight. I got this.
And this is the other thing. I don't know what Capcom's obsession with these horde-based survival modes mid-game are. They did it well one time in 4, and they just keep trying to do it again. And to be fair, they did it pretty alright in 5, I think. But doing it here in 3 is cheap, and it feels weird, and it doesn't work, especially in contrast to how much damage the enemies were soaking up immediately prior to this, and now suddenly they're dying in 3 to 4 bullets, and suddenly their bodies also disintegrate instantly. It's really weird. And then I haven't played it myself, but apparently they do the same shit in 8. And it's like really bad there with the Chris section. I don't know what this is, but they managed to not put it in 2, and I think again it suggests, because just in the little bit of 8 that I have played, I feel like the team that developed 2 is the only truly capable team at Capcom. I don't think 2 and 8 were developed by the same team. If they were, then holy shit, were they given some incredibly poor direction, because 8 is a much different game, and I feel that it is an inferior game, just from the little I've played. Again, I haven't beaten the whole thing. I worry what future remakes will be like. I think they probably will put great care into 4, but then the concern becomes, if 3 Remake is the result of genuine creative differences and not simply a lack of budget or time or care, then I'm even more worried. Because at least if this was simply a budgetary thing, then we know, like, alright, so Capcom is capable of doing better, they just chose not to, which is upsetting, but we can rest easy knowing they're probably not going to do it again, right? I don't like that 3 was sacrificed at the altar of Capcom's unending stupidity, because they are perhaps the single stupidest gaming developer out there currently. But at least they're probably not going to fuck up 4 and Code Veronica and whatever else is on the list, right? If this was a case of genuine creative differences, and Capcom thinks that, you know, maybe they won't use the team again, the same team, but if Capcom let developers make this game and didn't give them enough direction or take enough issue with the product to recognize and address these problems ahead of time, it makes me wonder if they will next time. Right? Like, what is 4 going to look like, especially after the success of 8? Right? I don't think 8 is a good game mechanically. Not overall, not so far. I think it is good, but I think it's going to devolve, because it kind of turns into like a roller coaster of set pieces, which is what I don't like about 7. It's too many set pieces. That's what I don't like about this game. It's too many set pieces, not enough gameplay. I don't think that line is supposed to say breached, I think it's a little weird that says breached when they've only just reached the room, without the B. I wonder if that was a miss subtitle. There's a little bit of a mystery there with that box or that bag we picked up, but I agree with the idea that it's probably just there to prevent you from soft locking yourself, because Resident Evil typically does something like that where they'll give you an item ahead of time to make sure you have room to pick up something essential later during the final section. And I think that that's all that is. I don't think there's any great mystery behind it. Okay. Yeah, that's the weird thing. Sometimes enemies just don't attack you. Alright, there's a little bit too many enemies here. The section's not really that bad on hardcore, but it is genuinely pretty challenging on the higher difficulties. Ow. As is probably the intention. Gotcha. It is also weird that they removed the blue herb entirely and that whole defensive mechanic. I say removed, but I think more accurately is that it was never here because, again, these games were perhaps developed alongside each other by two entirely different teams who at no point ever compared notes. This section's kind of a joke because you can just, if you have 3 flash grenades, then that's all you need. Each one stuns them for about 10 seconds, so it's pretty straightforward. Nice. And that is the end of Carlos' section. Suddenly all those zombies disappear. Somehow that blocks the door effectively enough to keep zombies out. Okay, whatever.
You alright?
Not even close. But at least it's over. I'm coming back. Vaccine's the real deal. Good.
This doesn't really look any different.
Somewhere? You're damn right. What do you think you're gonna do? Whole city's about to be microwaved. Come on, man. Call the government. Tell them we found a cure. You stall for time.
I do love that line. Call the government. Who is the government? who is Tyrell calling? I'm really curious. Right? Like, who does he talk to at quote unquote the government? Excuse me. Is this the government? Like, who the fuck? Yeah, my name is Tyrell. I'm a umbrella mercenary. I'm in Raccoon City right now, and I swear we have a vaccine. We just need you to like not nuke it. You know?
Thank God you're okay. I got good news.
I think that this is a really weird dream that she has because I don't understand it. Why is Carlos turning into a zombie? I feel like it would have made more sense if she again turned into a zombie here and tried to eat him. You know, I think that would have made a lot more sense given what had just happened to her. This, I just don't understand. I don't get this at all. And then how Jill knows that she's in a hospital room is also kind of a mystery. And then considering she just got eaten in her dream, she woke up pretty lightly there. I think normally when people are killed in their dream, they shoot awake pretty hard. But, whatever.
Attention
Attention all citizens. The missile strike on Raccoon City will occur in just hours. The payload is designed to eradicate all biological material. You will not survive if you remain in the city.
October 1st?
Evacuate now. Repeat.
No.
Evacuate now.
Can't be.
This is not a test.
And we're back with Jill for the final portion of the game here. I will finish exploring the hospital. And here's this burst handgun that I was talking about earlier. It's technically not a G19, it's a G18. You know, whatever the fuck difference that makes. But I just think that it's really weird. I think this should be sufficient. I just think it's sufficient that I think it's weird that instead of just giving you a burst fire upgrade, perhaps as a reward for beating the Nemesis, they just give you another handgun entirely, and I don't understand that decision. And again, why is it the same goddamn boring-ass G18? Have you ever seen a more boring-looking
That
pistol?
was all Carlos. He carried you here and he treated you himself, crazy bastard.
Where is he?
In the underground. Bard stockpiled the vaccine, enough to give the city some hope.
He thinks he can do this by himself. I'm going after him.
Wait, did you see the broadcast? They're gonna blow the city sky high. I'm trying to get a hold of someone, anyone with the clearance to stop it. Leave this mess to him. He's a professional.
So am I.
I did forget the lockpick, because I don't normally take it out of my inventory for that fight. And again, this is the Carlos section I was talking about. I think I am very curious how Carlos gets there and what he's doing, because he sure as shit doesn't go the same way we do, because this door is fucking locked with a lockpick, and he doesn't have one, right? That's the whole conceit of this section as Jill, going back to the hospital, is the fact that he doesn't have a fucking lockpick and Jill does, and he sure as shit didn't go this way. So it seems like a bit of a missed opportunity, and again, maybe something that could have been explored in DLC or an additional map where you could have just, you know, gone through and played some additional Carlos sections, or you know, maybe some what-if scenarios or anything, really. It could have reused the game's assets, but just something to give a little bit more life to the game, other than the same linear-ass story mode. You guys dead? You're not dead. They're never dead. Overall, I do think enemies are way more tolerable in RE3 Hardcore, but that's because RE3 Hardcore isn't actually hardcore, it's basically the normal mode. And Nightmare is, I would say, the new hardcore, and Inferno is bullshit, and I don't like it. And I suppose I could talk about that, because I haven't really mentioned Nightmare and Inferno mode. When this game was coming out and we learned about these modes, we heard about them, we didn't really know what they were. We theorized that obviously they were higher difficulties, but also that they were kind of arrange modes, and that would have been really cool. And they are technically arrange modes, kind of, but not really. They're just garbage as far as I'm concerned. They're just really shitty modes that crank up the numbers on the enemies really absurdly high, and also put the way more of the worst enemy type. Like, you don't really see any more hunters or any more lickers or any more dogs or any more gammas on that difficulty. The change is exclusively, well, it's adding more tentacle monsters and more paleheads. That's it. And also palehead tentacle monsters, which are the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in a video game. But, like, so it's just adding more of the worst enemy type. I wouldn't have minded more paleheads, because the paleheads are interesting. I would have minded, or I do mind, the addition of so many extra tentacle monsters, so many tentacle zombies. They're just the worst thing in the world. And unfortunately, it doesn't really shuffle anything. The only thing it shuffles in terms of item placements is, as far as I'm aware, is the stars card in Carlos's RPD section and the 3 gems in Jill's section. And it's a pretty minor shuffle because, again, there's not a whole lot of space for them to really work with. There's not too much they could have realistically done. But it's just not great. And Nightmare is okay as an experience because the numbers aren't cranked to 15, or rather, in this case, 19, because that's how high the difficulty adjustment in this game goes. It goes all the way up to fucking 19 on Nightmare difficulty, and it's ridiculous. I think Nightmare is fine. Inferno is trash, and it's mostly trash because there's no autosaves. So you only get your manual saves, and combined with only having 5 saves and the ridiculous numbers that enemies have and the ridiculous RNG involved in like dealing with Nemesis and dealing with the tentacle zombies, it's just a super unpleasant experience overall, and I don't enjoy it. And again, I can't help but feel as though you're intended to use the extra unlockable items in that mode. Because otherwise, why are they there? What mode are they intended for if not the... Like, if you're going to give me these stat booster items, what mode am I intended to use them in? Other than the mode that has the most ridiculous enemy numbers. It just doesn't make sense to me. Just needed to blow my nose there for a moment. Again, I think backtracking through here as Jill is alright, and it's an interesting way to hide the Magnum, I suppose. But again, it's one of those things that I feel like this could have been utilized more, right? Like, if Jill backtracks through here, it would have been really cool for her to backtrack to the RPD somehow, you know? Maybe you could have left the hospital and taken a short detour that would have, you know, kind of in a cheap, thrown together way, but a small detour that would have taken you back to the RPD, and so you could have explored the RPD as Jill, and it could have been filled with lickers and hunters, and it could have something super valuable there. I don't know. It just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity that there's this idea here that's only used once and not necessarily to great effect. Especially because the Magnum is kind of optional. You know, it's less useful against Nemesis than you would think, and it is completely worthless during the final fight because of the way that the final fight works. So there's minimal benefit to finding it on this difficulty, and they give it to you for free at the beginning on higher difficulties. So I don't know. In fact, I don't think I got the Magnum. No, I feel like I did get the Magnum my first time. I don't know. Because I definitely would have went back and explored, but for some reason I feel like I didn't get it. I'm not sure what that's about. It's like, just right there is an example of good numbers on damage. That's an example of enemies backing off, right? That licker could have hit me again, but because the lickers are well-designed enemies, they don't. They back off, and they give you a chance to reset, right? It's basically like a fighting game, right? If you get hit, the game is fair, and it just resets to neutral. Whoops. Whoopsie. That was an accident. I do like the comment that Jill makes here about how no one notices all this bullshit, especially since there's only one pretty thin door separating like the hospital from the secret underground laboratory. Also, I suppose we will change up and end things in her default costume, which I think is pretty good. It is kind of standard female heroine at this point, but I'm okay with it. I think Claire rocks it well. I think Jill rocks it well. If Ashley's wearing this shit though, I'm gonna draw the line there. If they put Ashley in this, dude, I'm gonna draw the line there because she should not. It would be repetitive and creatively bankrupt, but I just don't think this is an Ashley outfit. I imagine she will get a redesign, but not like this. So once again, we're gonna save and take what is probably our last break, and I will record the rest of this tomorrow as it is midnight here currently.